These are stories where love meets betrayal. Stories that make you see life a little differently.
The rain had started just as she stepped out of the apartment building, a soft drizzle that quickly grew heavier, drumming against the umbrella she barely bothered to open. Emily pulled her coat tighter around herself. The fabric soaked almost immediately, but she didn't care. There was a strange comfort in the cold wetness, as if the city itself mirrored the turmoil inside her. The streets glistened with reflections of neon signs and streetlights, distorted by puddles that rippled with every passing car. She walked slowly, deliberately, trying to make sense of the thoughts that kept circling in her mind. The past weeks had been strange, filled with half-smiles, vague excuses, and an undercurrent of tension she couldn't quite put into words. David, her partner of 6 years, had been distant. It wasn't sudden, it was subtle. A missing glance here, a delayed text there. She had tried to ignore it, blaming her own imagination. But tonight, with the rain soaking her hair and dripping down her collar, she could no longer pretend. The city seemed alive with secrets. She passed the cafe where they had first met, the small table by the window where he had smiled at her for the first time, and a pang of memory hit her chest. The warmth of that moment contrasted sharply with the cold reality she now felt pressing down. Emily's hand trembled as she reached into her bag, pulling out her phone. No new messages, no notifications, nothing that could confirm her unease. Yet the feeling persisted, gnawing at the edges of her mind, an uninvited shadow she couldn't shake. A sudden gust of wind blew down the street, carrying with it the scent of wet asphalt and rain-drenched flowers from a nearby florist. Emily shivered and pulled her coat closer. She noticed the glow of an apartment window above, a flicker of movement inside that reminded her uncomfortably of herself. Alone, uncertain, watching life go on around her. She wondered if David was at home or if he was somewhere else, perhaps with someone else. The thought made her stomach tighten, but she forced herself to keep walking, each step echoing against the wet pavement. She paused at a familiar corner, the intersection where they had shared their first kiss on a rainy night just like this. The memory made her heart ache. How many times had they laughed here, oblivious to the world, believing in a love that now felt fragile, almost like glass ready to shatter. Emily glanced at her reflection in the puddle at her feet. The distorted image staring back at her seemed unfamiliar. There was a stranger in her eyes, one who had been waking up slowly to the possibility that everything she had believed in might be wrong. A notification finally buzzed on her phone, a message from David. She hesitated before opening it. The words were innocuous, almost casual, but there was a strange stiffness to the punctuation, a distance that made her skin prickle. She read it again, hoping to find some hidden meaning, some reassurance. But the unease only grew. Something was off, and Emily could no longer ignore it. The rain continued, relentless and steady, as if urging her forward. She walked on, past the familiar streets of her neighborhood, past the small park where the leaves were now slick and shiny, and the benches glistening with rain. She had no destination, yet every step felt purposeful. She needed clarity, even if it meant facing a truth she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Her mind raced with questions, each one heavier than the last. And then, as the night deepened and the rain showed no sign of letting up, she saw it. An unexpected figure, a shadow near the cafe across the street. Someone she didn't expect to see. Her breath caught. Emily stopped, rain dripping from her hair, the city alive and dripping around her. Something was about to change. She didn't know what, but she felt it deep in her bones. And as she stared at the figure, a cold certainty settled in her chest. Tonight, nothing would ever be the same again. Morning light seeped through the curtains, gray and muted, as if the city itself had not fully woken. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, her coffee growing cold on the nightstand. The events of last night replayed in her mind. The shadow, the unexpected figure near the cafe. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, something irreversibly changed. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a notification she hadn't expected. It was a social media alert, a tag, a picture she knew she shouldn't see. Her heart lurched. The image was of David, smiling in a way she hadn't seen for months. But there was someone else beside him, close, intimate. Emily's hands trembled as she scrolled through the feed. She saw messages, comments, interactions that confirmed the fear she had tried to deny. Her mind raced, refusing to slow down. How long had this been happening? Was it months? Weeks? Days? She replayed every memory, searching for signs she had missed. Every late night, every vague excuse, every distracted look. It all aligned now. The warmth she had felt for him turned suddenly cold, a sharp contrast to the ache building in her chest. She sat back, letting the phone fall onto her lap. Rain began tapping against the window, gentle but steady, a mirror to the tears forming in her eyes. Emily pressed her palms to her face, breathing deeply, trying to steady herself. Denial came first, a faint hope that it wasn't real, that there was some misunderstanding. She scrolled back, reading the messages again, but the truth was unmistakable. Her fingers curled around the edge of the bed, gripping it as if holding herself together physically could keep her heart intact. Anger followed, sharp and hot. A betrayal so close, so intimate, that it felt like the ground beneath her feet had vanished. Her mind flashed to moments that had seemed trivial. A smile that lingered too long, a text deleted too quickly, a call left unanswered. Everything now felt like pieces of a puzzle she didn't want to complete. She rose and walked to the window, looking out at the gray city streets, slick with rain. People passed beneath umbrellas, unaware of the storm brewing inside her. The world continued, indifferent, while she grappled with the truth. A sudden thought hit her. Confronting him now would change everything. She wanted answers, yet feared what she might hear. Her reflection in the wet glass was pale, eyes wide, lips pressed together. The room felt smaller, suffocating, the air thick with unspoken words. Emily sank onto the floor, her back against the wall, and let the tears come freely. She thought about all the promises, the shared dreams, the quiet mornings and laughter that now felt like a fragile illusion. Time seemed to stretch, each second heavy with the weight of discovery. She wondered how she had missed it, how someone she loved so deeply could slip away without her noticing. Her chest ached, a rhythm of grief and disbelief. The rain intensified, drumming against the window pane, filling the silence with its relentless presence. Emily closed her eyes, trying to gather her thoughts, trying to find some anchor in the storm. The city outside blurred, the neon lights reflecting in the puddles like fractured memories. She realized that denial was over. There was no going back, only the painful clarity of the truth, sharp and unyielding. And yet, beneath the heartbreak, a small spark of determination began to grow. She would confront this, face it, survive it. The rain continued to fall, each drop a reminder that the world moved on, no matter the pain she felt. Emily took a deep breath, letting the sound of the storm fill the room, preparing herself for what was to come. The apartment was quiet, the only sound the steady patter of rain against the windows. Emily stood in the doorway, her coat still damp from the walk through the storm. David sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, unaware of her presence. She cleared her throat, a small sound, but enough to make him look up. His eyes widened for a brief moment, and then something shifted in his expression. Emily stepped inside, shutting the door softly behind her. The room smelled faintly of coffee and wet clothes. "I saw the messages," she said, her voice low but steady. David's face went pale. He put his phone down, fingers trembling slightly. Emily, I can explain," he began, but the words felt heavy, insufficient. She moved closer, her eyes fixed on his. "I trusted you," she said, letting each word land slowly. David swallowed, looking anywhere but at her. "I never meant for you to find out like this," he whispered. Emily shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "You didn't mean to, but you did it anyway." The rain outside intensified, tapping against the window pane, a drumbeat echoing her rising tension. She crossed her arms, trying to keep herself composed. "I thought we were happy," she said, voice breaking slightly. David's eyes softened with guilt, but she couldn't let it touch her heart. I don't know what to say," he admitted, voice small, almost pleading. "Say nothing," she replied, the words sharp and deliberate. She moved to the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water, though she didn't feel thirsty. The silence stretched, filled with the sound of rain and the occasional drip from the ceiling. David remained on the couch, fidgeting, guilt written across every line of his face. Emily turned back to him, the resolve in her eyes hardening. "This changes everything," she said simply. He nodded, unable to speak, knowing she was right. Memories of laughter, quiet nights, shared plans, each one now felt tainted. She took a deep breath, steadying herself against the surge of anger and heartbreak. "I need to leave," she said finally. David looked up, shock mingled with desperation. "Emily, please," he began, but she cut him off. "No, it's too late," she said, her voice firm. The rain outside seemed to echo her finality, relentless and unyielding. She gathered her coat and bag, moving toward the door. David watched silently, a mixture of regret and helplessness etched into his features. She opened the door, rain immediately soaking her hair and shoulders. The cold air hit her like a shock, yet she welcomed it, feeling alive in her anger and clarity. Emily stepped out into the storm, each step purposeful, leaving behind the warmth of a home that no longer felt like hers. The city streets shimmered with rain, reflecting neon lights and distorted images, much like the reflection of her life had become. She didn't look back, not once. With each step, the weight of betrayal pressed down on her, but so did the growing sense of liberation. She had faced the truth. She had confronted him. And though her heart ached, she knew she would survive. The rain continued to fall, washing over her, cleansing, relentless, as if marking the end of one chapter and the uncertain beginning of another. Emily disappeared into the streets, the city alive around her, while inside, a storm of emotion raged, slowly giving way to the first faint light of resolve. Emily walked through the streets, the rain soaking her hair and clothes. Each drop felt like a small release, a reminder that she was still alive, despite the ache in her chest. The city around her blurred, neon lights reflecting in puddles, distorted and beautiful. She had no destination in mind, only the need to move, to feel, to breathe. Memories of David pressed against her mind, sharp and persistent, but she pushed them aside. She remembered the first time they had run through the rain together, laughing without a care. The thought brought a pang of nostalgia, but it was fleeting. The reality of betrayal was heavier, more permanent. Emily ducked under the awning of a closed shop, letting the rain run down her face. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, tasting the cold, wet air, feeling it fill her lungs. The city seemed endless, streets winding and familiar, yet foreign in the gray morning light. She passed a small park, the benches slick and shiny, the leaves trembling in the storm. A flash of memory hit her. A quiet afternoon, him holding her hand, their laughter mingling with the distant hum of the city. It felt like another lifetime. Emily shook her head, forcing herself back to the present. She couldn't dwell on the past. She needed clarity, needed space to think. She continued walking, boots splashing through shallow puddles, each step echoing in the empty streets. The rain became a steady rhythm, a drumbeat guiding her forward. She noticed a narrow alley she had never explored before and turned into it, letting curiosity and instinct lead her. The alley was quieter, almost serene compared to the busy streets she had left behind. Water dripped from the rooftops, pooling at her feet, reflecting the dim city lights. Emily stopped for a moment, looking up at the sky, letting the rain fall freely over her face. there was a strange sense of cleansing in it, as if the storm could wash away not just the city's grime, but her own pain. She remembered the shadow she had seen the night before, the warning of change that had set everything into motion. It felt distant now, like a dream she had lived through, rather than the sharp reality it had once been. Emily's mind wandered to what lay ahead. Would she leave the city, take a trip, find solitude in nature? Or would she stay, facing the remnants of her past, learning to rebuild from the pieces left behind? She had no answer yet, only the certainty that she needed to move, to find herself again. The rain softened slightly, a light drizzle, as if the storm had passed its peak. Emily found a small bridge over a narrow canal, water glistening beneath her feet. She leaned against the railing, watching the ripples and reflections, letting the motion calm her thoughts. A sense of resolve began to grow within her, tentative but real. She had survived this far. She could survive what came next. The rain, once a heavy curtain pressing down on her, now felt like a companion, a witness to her journey. Emily closed her eyes, breathing deeply, feeling the storm's rhythm match her own heartbeat. She opened them again, gazing at the city ahead, uncertain but unbroken. Each step forward felt lighter, each breath steadier, as if the rain itself encouraged her to keep moving. The past would always be a part of her, but it would no longer define her. Emily turned away from the bridge, walking toward the unknown, toward the possibility of new beginnings. And as the city streets stretched ahead, glistening with rain, she felt the first true sense of freedom in weeks. She did not know where she was going, but she knew she would get there. And in that knowledge, she found a small, fragile peace. Emily found herself in a quiet part of the city, where the streets were lined with trees and the buildings were low and old. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, almost soothing. She paused on a small stone bench, letting the calm wash over her. For the first time in days, through the city. Each memory carried weight, but she felt herself slowly untangling from it. The reflections in the puddles around her seemed different now, clearer, more honest. She thought about David, about the love they had shared, and the trust that had been broken. There was sadness, yes, but also understanding. She could not change what had happened, but she could choose how to move forward. Emily looked up at the gray sky, letting the rain tap lightly on her face. It was no longer a punishment, but a gentle reminder of life's persistence. She thought about the small joys she had forgotten, the sound of birds after a storm, the aroma of wet earth, the quiet moments alone with her thoughts. A faint smile crossed her lips. It felt strange to smile, to feel a spark of something beyond the grief and anger. She leaned back on the bench, closing her eyes for a moment. Memories of laughter with David drifted past, soft and distant, like echoes of another life. She did not reach for them, did not cling to them. She simply let them pass. The rain slowed further, droplets sliding lazily down the leaves above. Emily realized that she had learned something important about herself. She was stronger than she had known. The betrayal had hurt, yes, but it had also forced her to see clearly. to see what she truly wanted, what she deserved, and who she was without someone else defining her. She opened her eyes and gazed at the canal nearby, the water reflecting the muted colors of the city and sky. The ripples moved gently, disturbed only by the occasional drop of rain. Emily felt a strange sense of peace, fragile but growing. She could feel the tension in her chest loosening, her heartbeats settling into a steadier rhythm. The storm within her had not disappeared entirely, but it had shifted into something quieter, manageable. She thought about the future, uncertain but full of possibilities. Perhaps she would travel, explore new places, or simply learn to enjoy her own company. Perhaps she would meet someone new when the time was right. Or perhaps she would focus entirely on herself. Whatever came next, she knew she would face it with courage. The rain had cleansed more than just the city streets. It had washed away some of her fears and doubts. Emily rose from the bench, brushing the damp leaves from her coat. She walked slowly, letting the soft drizzle guide her, feeling the city alive around her, but not oppressive. Each step was deliberate, a choice to move forward rather than look back. The sound of water dripping, of distant cars, of birds returning to the trees, filled her senses. She smiled again, a quiet, private smile. It was not a smile of joy, but of acceptance and hope. She had survived the storm, both outside and within. And now, standing in the gentle rain, Emily felt a sense of renewal. The city stretched before her, glistening and alive, full of both uncertainty and promise. She did not know exactly what lay ahead, but she knew she was ready to face it. The rain continued to fall, soft and persistent, carrying with it a promise of healing and new beginnings. Emily walked on, each step lighter than the last, a small smile playing on her lips as the city and the rain welcomed her forward. Weeks had passed since that stormy night when Emily had confronted the truth. The city felt different now, familiar yet changed, much like herself. The rain had become softer, a gentle rhythm rather than a relentless storm. Emily walked through the streets she once knew so well, noticing the little details she had missed before. The smell of wet earth after a drizzle, the sound of distant conversations, the glint of sunlight on puddles. Each moment was a reminder that life moved on, no matter the pain she had endured. She had returned to her routines, small acts of normalcy that felt grounding and real. Coffee at the same cafe, a stroll through the park, a quiet evening reading at home. And yet there was a new layer to her days, an awareness, a caution, but also a resilience. Emily no longer relied on anyone else to define her happiness. The betrayal had hurt deeply, but it had also given her a chance to understand herself more clearly. She smiled faintly at a passerby, a small gesture that felt significant. The city lights reflected off the damp streets, casting colors she had not noticed before. She found a familiar bridge, the one she had crossed in the storm, and paused to look at the water below. Ripples danced lightly, disturbed only by occasional drops from the leaves above. A sense of calm settled over her, stronger than she had felt in weeks. Emily realized that life would always have uncertainty, heartbreak, and storms. But it also held beauty, resilience, and new possibilities. She had survived the storm, both outside and within. Her phone buzzed, a message from a friend checking in, casual and kind. Emily responded with a smile, appreciating the small connection, the reminder that not all relationships were defined by betrayal. She walked on, passing the small cafe where she and David had first met. Memories now distant but no longer painful. They were part of her story, but they did not define her future. The drizzle lightened further, sunlight breaking through the clouds in gentle beams. Emily felt the warmth on her face and lifted her head, letting the light touch her. She had learned to find strength in solitude, to cherish her own presence. And perhaps, one day, she would open herself to love again, cautiously, but willingly. For now, she was content simply to exist fully in the present. The streets were alive with people, the city moving on, vibrant and relentless. Emily walked among them, a part of the flow, yet distinct, grounded, free. She paused for a moment, taking in the scene, the rain, the light, the life around her. It felt like a quiet celebration, an acknowledgement of survival, growth, and hope. Her heart no longer ached as sharply. The wounds had begun to heal. Emily smiled softly to herself, feeling a sense of completion, of resolution. She had faced the pain, confronted betrayal, and found clarity in the storm. And now, as the gentle rain continued to fall, she stepped forward, fully present, ready for whatever came next. The city stretched before her, gleaming and alive, and Emily felt the first true sense of freedom since the night it all began. She walked on, rain brushing her hair, heart steady, mind clear, and soul lighter. No one could take that from her now. The past was behind her, the present was hers, and the future awaited. And in that quiet, rain-filled morning, Emily finally smiled with peace, ready to embrace the unknown.
Sometimes pain doesn't come from enemies, but from the ones we trusted the most. Maybe that's how life teaches us to see the truth. Could you forgive such a betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming, stories that will touch your heart.